Welcome to the All-Star Athlete Podcast, your guide to mastering the mental game and reaching your full potential. If you've been listening to the podcast and you've found the episodes to be informative and or interesting, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. I will be releasing episodes weekly, so subscribing to the podcast is the best way to stay up to speed on when the new episodes are released and to make sure that you don't miss any of the content. Also, liking each episode, if you have in fact been enjoying the content, as well as leaving any questions or comments that you may have down below, also go a long way in supporting the podcast. So thank you so much for listening and enjoy the show. I like to do a little icebreaker kind of thing because the guest who I had last week, for example, was a woman who I'd never met before. You and I had chatted a little bit before.
But we're still pretty close to strangers, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. I've interviewed some of the other trainers and stuff and people I know a little bit more. But as I do this more and more, I'm going to have people on here who are like legit strangers. Like I've never met them before in person.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of have a little chat, also kind of warm up, right? So that we're not as nervous.
Get into our little flow.
Our little flow and stuff. But it's like, I don't want to sit down right away and put the headsets on. That's a little bit restrictive. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of somewhere caught in between, like, how much do we discuss before the episode versus how much do we discuss once we started?
Oh.
And we can rediscuss what we discussed earlier, like all of the all of the interview questions that I have for you are kind of about what you're doing now, mm-hmm. but you talked about your background.
Yeah.
Right? So why don't you start by telling me a little bit about your background, and then we can kind of get into what you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah, background, like growing up and everything. Got me.
Yeah, sure. So kind of how did you get from where you started, i.e. growing up, athletic background, how'd you get into yoga and so forth, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents were both collegiate athletes. My mom was a soccer player. My dad was rugby and track. So my brothers were also athletes my whole life, older brothers. So I was kind of raised in a very sports-centered, movement, masculine energy-focused family. So I was playing a myriad of sports for most of my life, and then especially gymnastics beginning from a very young age. Like some of my very first memories that I can recall as a human are like being in a leotard at probably 4 years old and the little teen, foam pit or whatever. Not teen, toddler foam pit, excuse me. And then once I got more competitive in middle school, I was in the junior Olympic route, and it was really fun and it was really exciting, and I was pretty good and I enjoyed it. I loved my little family there, but I really loved the other sports I was doing, and I was starting to have to lose time with friends and building the other important parts of adolescence, and I just felt myself feeling really burned out and drained, and I was limited when in middle school. Middle school is already hard socially I don't want to say for everyone, but I think it's a common theme. It can be a little bit of a hard adjustment in the social realm. So being invited places and not being able to do that because I have gymnastics every day for 3 hours after school, I was really missing that connective piece. And so I had to make some choices, and I stepped out of gymnastics to play soccer and run track and continue volleyball. And those were kind of my primary things through the rest of high school. But as soon as I stopped competing with gymnastics, I actually immediately started coaching it. So I was 13, 14 years old, and I wasn't getting paid, but I had to do volunteer hours for school. Not a whole lot, but that was the no-brainer thing, is that I could still be around my coach, who was a grandfather kind of mentor to me, still be around the sport. And that's, I think, where my natural gift of being a teacher and an educator really shone through. I was like, wow, I'm quite young and I'm, dare I say, a bit natural at this. There are a lot of things I struggle with, and we can go into my difficulties with some of the different professional aspects of adulthood, but something that's always come really easy for me is teaching and educating and explaining to people how to do things, especially when it comes to body-mind connection. So gymnastics was definitely my foundation with that, from a athlete and then as a coach and a guide.
Okay. And let's back up a step here.
Sure.
If you could briefly introduce who you are, where you're from, those kind of things, so that our listeners can know who you are exactly.
Absolutely. My name is Janelle Fellenz. I'm on Instagram as Janelle Kathleen. That's my middle name, but I'm from San Jose, California in the Bay Area, and I was born and raised there my entire life, and then I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, go Mustangs, for college, and I got my Bachelor's of Science in psychology. So I really loved that program because it was really science-centered, and from there, I did my health coach training with Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I did a follow-up training after that a few years later, again through that program, to become a National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. So the trajectory was really like, it's always been wellness, but it's taken different forms. I mean, wellness is so comprehensive, but it kind of started more with athleticism and sports and finding wellness through movement, and then as I got into college, it started to bring in the mental component of mindfulness and yoga, and then really diet and changing all of that. And then in my 20s, finding a different relationship with substances or cutting them out or adding things in. And so that's kind of the arc it took. And now it's full-time yoga. I'm a full-time yoga professional. So.
Okay, that's quite the culmination of everything that's sort of happened in your life throughout what you're interested in, your education, and kind of where you are now. So right now you are a full-time yoga instructor and kind of leader within the industry, is that correct?
Leader in the industry sounds very regal, but I do have an impact around here, but I am a yoga teacher and a yoga training and development leader. So for Fit Athletic, the company that we work at together, I am the yoga program lead for all of the locations for the company. So I teach there, but I also get paid to get into teachers' classes, take the classes, and provide feedback. I let them know how they could improve their cueing or their sequencing or the way that they're holding space in the room or professionalism. So a lot of the kind of technical components, but a lot of the nuances that just draw people back to classes. So I do training development for Fit, and then I do a very similar thing at Yoga Box. So I'm the lead instructor for San Diego as a region for Power Flow. So I teach most of my classes there, and then I do the same thing. I get into classes, I provide feedback. I also am co-leading our yoga teacher training, the 200-hour training this summer. I've been coaching that for the last 3 rounds, I think, and this time I'll be taking over in leadership for it, which I'm super excited about. So every day I'm either taking a yoga class or teaching a yoga class or working on kind of programming on workshops or continued education to create like a structure of how our staff can continue to improve.
Okay, and you mentioned a few minutes ago that your Instagram is, I believe, Janelle Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other websites or places that people can connect with you?
Website is currently in progress, but I do have an email list. I have a weekly newsletter. It's called Well and Janelle Weekly. And so maybe in the show notes, we could link that on how we can sign up for that.
Absolutely.
So,
but the best way is
best way right
Instagram.
Now is Instagram, and that'll have my teaching schedule. It also have a link. I think I need to finalize the link to my email list there, but that'll have any upcoming retreats. I announce everything there primarily.
Okay, and so that was going to be my next question. You host or co-host yoga retreats, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm early on in that venture. I've done a few here and there, but it's actually my big focus right now. I'm working on 2 larger retreats, one happening in the fall and then one happening in January that I'm really ready to pour energy back into. Okay, and where are those going to be? The one in October is going to be in Joshua Tree, so October 2nd to 5th, if you're free. I am opening the wait list over the next week. And then in January, it'll be probably about the first week, and I haven't solidly locked in the location, but it's really looking like Sayulita. It's definitely going to be Mexico, but I haven't confirmed the Airbnb yet, so.
Okay. Well, I will personally be in Europe at that time.
That's a really good alternative.
Yeah, London and Paris specifically. But I did actually go to a yoga retreat with, did you know Taylor Brockhoff by any chance?
Oh, yeah, she's such a sweetheart. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I met her at Yoga Box originally, and then she started teaching at Fit, so we shared companies together, and she's just such a delight, yeah. Yeah, I think she moved back to Idaho if I'm remembering correctly. I think Boise. Mm-hmm. A few years ago, I went to her yoga retreat in Hawaii. She and I believe it's Abby Flynn, if you knew Abby as well, maybe? I know of her. I haven't personally met her yet, but I've heard great things. The two of them co-hosted an Ayurvedic yoga retreat on the Big Island.
That was in 2023, I think, early to mid 2023. And that was like a 5-day, 4-night yoga retreat, which was super awesome. That was my first experience with it. So I had a great time.
What impact did it have on you?
So great question. I've been going through some health issues, which I don't want to get into too much of right now, but the scope of which is that I often feel lethargic, dizzy, brain fog, sort of. It's difficult for me to exercise, basically. I don't know if it's related to the COVID vaccine or not. I don't really want to get into the semantics or the politics of COVID, long COVID, vaccine, health issues, and so forth today necessarily on this podcast. But I will say that that was the driving reason that I went, is that for the better part of 4 to 5 years, I've been experiencing some ongoing autoimmune kind of health conditions. And I've been seeking aid from a number of different sources, doctors and otherwise. Sure. Acupuncture, naturopathic doctors, yoga retreats, really Reiki, any massage therapy, any of these sorts of things that could help me feel better. So that was kind of the scope of why I decided to go on that retreat. Plus, I don't really take vacations that often, and it kind of came up at the right time. And Taylor seemed super awesome, and everybody at Fit seemed super awesome. I knew a couple of my coworkers were going, and so that's kind of how that all ended up falling into place. But yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, well, good on you for really seeking all the different types of resources you can get for health stuff. I'm no stranger to that, and respect your privacy, but rooting for you over here.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate that. I mean, you probably get a lot of people on your yoga retreats, generally speaking, that are going for various different reasons, mental, physical, emotional, or otherwise. So you probably are familiar with people kind of in a similar position to me, sharing their experiences and seeking aid spiritually or otherwise, if I had to guess, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And while there are a lot of retreats that really are just created to be a vacation and a relaxation, and I think that's so valuable, and there's nothing missing there. I want to be really clear about that. Something that I'm really passionate about in the retreats that I put on is that it does have a lot of intentional components of personal transformation, with workshops and reflection and moving through rewiring beliefs and flushing stuff through our systems through movement and everything. And so those people who come on to my retreat aren't necessarily there for just laying around by the pool, which again is so good for you. And I'm not trying to bash that in any way, but to your point, I am getting that because the people know that that's what I'm putting on. They're coming to find some sort of alchemy within them, to turn towards something, to move through something. And that's across the spectrum. It could be emotional, physical, spiritual, but as we kind of know, they're often quite connected. And especially with autoimmune, I'm a big believer that those are very, very intricately connected. So
yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that different yoga retreats hosted by different people are completely different. Some of them maybe just relaxing on the beach and doing daily yoga and going to the spa and fun things. And other ones are probably a little bit more intentional with breathwork ceremonies and some shaman type, herbal ceremonies and so forth, cacao. And there was a few things that we did. They did like the eye drops. You probably know what they are.
Oh, yeah. Like, Sananga, I think.
Something like that.
I might be mispronouncing it, but I think that might be what you're referring to.
And then there was another one that I opted out of. It definitely wasn't... What's the one that people go to like Peru for?
Ayahuasca?
Yeah, it wasn't that. It wasn't that.
Was it a psychedelic or was it like hop? It
was a nasal.
Hape?
Something like that.
It's like sacred tobacco, I believe.
Yeah, I think I opted out of that one. And I actually did the eye drops in just one eye, which might sound kind of weird, but
it hurts.
It burned for sure. I had detaching retina in my right eye like 5 years ago. So for those that don't know, that means I was basically going blind in my right eye. Oh. Your retina is the inside lining of your eyeball that detects light. And mine got a tear in it, and it was leaking the fluid from the inside of my eyeball to the other side of the retina and peeling it off the inside of my eye. So I actually had to have emergency surgery the day after I found out that I had that. And I was 3 years recovered from that, but I decided it wasn't the best idea to put some sort of like burning eye drop thingamajig in my eye.
Wise, very wise of you.
Yeah, I like to think so, but I participated as much as I could.
Participate, but protect yourself.
Right,
Very good balance you struck, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so before we move further, I had some kind of fun questions for you here.
Great.
Normally they're like icebreakers, but since we're already a few minutes in, that's fine. We'll just go ahead and move forward with them anyways. So regarding, your yoga sessions and so forth, since that's going to be the bulk of what we talk about today, my first question for you is that if you had to lead a sunrise yoga session in a costume, okay, are you showing up as a forest fairy, an ancient goddess, or something wildly unexpected that we'd never guess?
Would never have seen this question coming, and I love it. Okay. Although I really love the idea of a fairy or goddess costume, and I could see myself doing that. I think the auto answer for me is I would be dressed think like a human disco ball, just like full sparkle reflective head to toe. I mean, if we're doing sunrise, I want the morning light bouncing off of me into the students. We're going to embody the radiance and just be flamboyant as hell. It's going to be great.
I love that. So just like gold and silver sequins.
Absolutely.
And like you're just shining like a diamond.
Exactly.
What is that? It's a Rihanna song or something, right?
You could sing it.
Shine bright like, shine bright like a diamond. I don't know. Singing is not my forte. Painting, yes. Singing, no.
There you go.
Okay, next question. Let's say yoga blocks and bolsters are banned for a day. You have to replace them with something totally absurd. Are you choosing beach towels, throw pillows, or oversized fruit like watermelons, or something else?
It depends on the style of yoga, because if we're doing like yin or restorative, humor is not going to be very tolerable for 5 minutes to lay on something for 5 minutes. So if we're doing some sort of restorative or yin class, then we'll do like stuffed animals or something like that. But if we're doing vinyasa or a powerful moving class, then I love the idea of a watermelon, statues, your friends. I think that could be a great way to get interactive and connected.
Okay. Bonus question that's actually not on the list here, but that I want to ask you anyways. And I think I know the answer, but we're going to ask it anyways.
Okay.
Have you ever done puppy or kitten yoga?
No, but it's so high on my list.
Or baby goat yoga. I guess that's another one,
They're
right?
so high on my list.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to make it a priority.
I've never done that before, but I think it's on my list as well. Have you ever been to like a cat cafe or one of those?
I have done that.
I think there's one in San Diego.
There's one in like Normal Heights-ish, I want to say. It's not very far from here.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's a retreat idea. Have a little surprise like kitten yoga day or something like that.
That's not a bad idea.
I
like the way you're thinking here.
Yeah, that would be fun. Okay.
Stay tuned, Joshua Tree. We'll
yeah,
see.
exactly. Maybe that's going to get added to the agenda. All right, next question. If you could only speak in mantras or affirmations for 24 hours, what would be your go-to phrase? Or I guess phrases, because you probably have to say more than one thing.
My longest standing phrase that has really guided me would be, it's not easy, it's simple. And my gymnastics coach, Al, actually, I don't know if, I can't say that he's the originator of that quote. Seems like something someone else might have said, but when I've Googled, I've never found a direct answer, but it's not easy, it's simple. I would just have that on repeat.
You feel like you say that pretty much every class, or just like...
I would say every couple months, probably every other month, I'm talking about that in yoga class, or whether that's like the whole theme and purpose of my class, and then here and there I'll sprinkle that into our experience when I see people struggling in poses, right? It's like the pose that we're in is not all that complicated. We're not doing a handstand right now, and yet holding a lunge for a while it's not easy, but it's quite simple what we're in. So how can you use your breath, use your tools to stay in this? And that applies across the features of life, in my opinion, whether it's your daily habits, anything that you say that you're going to do and you don't end up doing. A lot of these things are not rocket science. Now, you may have much bigger goals that are a lot more complex for sure, but in terms of the day-to-day things that you're saying that you're going to do and not doing, or the things that you want and aren't happening, oftentimes the building blocks that we need to get to the big things are not easy, but they are quite simple, and we got to take our power back with that.
Okay, that makes sense. What is your most definitely not Ayurvedic approved snack that somehow still makes you feel very centered?
So, unfortunately, I'm really sugar sensitive, and I love sugar. I love sugar. So I don't have it very often, and so when I do have it, I wouldn't say that I feel centered because it makes me really jittery, but it does make me very happy. So I just want to make that distinction. I wouldn't say it leaves me centered, but it definitely fills a nice juicy hole in me. But A cinnamon roll. Cinnamon roll
Okay.
is so
Like
good.
Cinnabon?
It's chewy. No.
Not Cinnabon.
No.
Overrated?
There's a place in Pismo Beach where I would go on vacation every summer with my family growing up, and it's Old West cinnamon rolls, and like that one is incredible. I'm gluten-free now, so I can't have that, but if you go to Nectarine Grove in Encinitas, they have a fantastic cinnamon rolls. There's a lot of really embarrassing gluten-free items, in my opinion, that I'm like, this is why people make fun of us, but there's some things, like the gluten-free cinnamon roll in Nectarine Grove, where I'm like, this is good.
Okay. That's like a coffee shop?
It's a all gluten-free restaurant in Encinitas.
Oh, what?
Everything is gluten-free. You gotta go.
I should go there because I'm
Absolutely.
gluten-free as well.
And it's good stuff too. You can get chicken and waffles, California burritos, pancakes, cinnamon rolls.
Okay. So my last podcast guest actually turned me on to a phrase that she referred to as treat meals instead of cheat meals. And
I
was
love that rebrand.
That sounds so much better. Because like cheating is just like there's such a negative connotation with that.
It feels very shamey.
And even if you eat healthy all the time, which both of us probably do, I've never really clung to the idea of like cheat meals because like I eat healthy 80 to 90% of the time. So if I'm going to enjoy a snack, I don't really feel like I'm cheating. I'm within the scope of what I'm trying to accomplish. But even for sort of the average person, like cheating just doesn't sound good. But treating yourself, it's like a privilege, you know?
Absolutely. And I think unless you have serious medical conditions or like really big sensitivities to things that require all or nothing mentalities, I think the all or nothing mentality coming from experience can be really damaging, right? I think many of us, myself included, who have gone through like overly obsessing over healthy eating, again, it started with really good intentions to take care of ourselves, right? But when we hyperfixate on it, the stress that we are inducing on ourselves to make the perfect choices, honestly, I think is going to make us sicker quicker than us having a few Oreos one day, because our body is capable of moving through toxins and stuff, but it is not designed to live in a state of stress because you don't know what to order from the restaurant, you know? So I really agree with you. 80-20 again. Everyone's body is different. I can't be eating sugar. I can't do 50-50 for sugar. I kind of need like 90-10, you know, more than 70-30. So everyone tailor it, but all or nothing, I think, can be a well-intentioned road to not feeling very good.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, I had a personal training client a few years back who actually had orthorexia. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is.
Yeah, obsession with healthy eating.
Yes.
And it's very fear-oriented.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a lot of eating disorders in the athletic realm, and certainly I think more so among women than men, but right, anorexia, bulimia, these sort of things. But then orthorexia was one that I had never heard of before, which is basically a hyperfixation on eating healthy and like never putting anything bad or negative, I guess, treat meals or cheat, however you want to. No sugar, no soda, no alcohol, no fast food, it was just like chicken and rice
Nothing,
and like nothing ever. And yeah, it can consume you, no pun intended, and be bad for your mental health when you overly fixate on eating healthy all the time and depriving yourself mentally and emotionally of some sweets every once in a while, because our body craves that. So
absolutely. Like, congrats on staying away from 100% of the toxins. Like, your stress that you're enduring from this is actually probably more toxic than that. And it's an honest mistake. Like, I know it's well-intentioned, but it's a tough lesson to learn for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on here and kind of talk about your journey with yoga and what you're kind of up to right now as far as professionally and maybe personally, if some of these things kind of tie together. So as far as your yoga retreats and what you do as, you know, in your professional day-to-day work, you've built a platform around words like wellness, bodywork, retreats, and divine feminine. So can you talk a little bit about what those terms personally mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Wellness is, to me, I went down a rabbit hole of definitions recently because I thought it was really interesting to pick that apart. But to me, it's not just this abstract noun. It's a commitment. It's a practice. Wellness is daily choices that are contributing to the well-being, the health of your mind, body, spirit. So it's the lifestyle. I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but I really feel that's accurate. Yeah.
Okay, what about like divine feminine?
I know this one is really buzzwordy lately, and it's a hot topic, and I think there's a lot of distortion that goes on around that, so I'm happy to kind of clarify, and I'm by no means perfect in this realm. It's something that I'm really trying to work on, because as I mentioned, I grew up with a lot of masculine energy in my family. I mean, my mom was absolutely wonderful, still is absolutely wonderful, but again, we were very athletic, masculine energy focused house and stuff, and because of that high energy, I didn't feel super in touch with my softer, slower, more intuitive side for a lot of my life, and that's something I cultivated in my mid-20s. So divine feminine, to me, it's important to say that there's no particular aesthetic that is the picture of divine feminine. It's not a look, it's not an outfit that you wear, and it's not perfection, and it's not just being a gooey girl with no boundaries and spreading love and light. To me, it is a balance of being in the yin energy, the softness, and in the warmth, and in the nurturing, and it's also the depths. It's really big, raw emotion. I mean, we are the cycle of death and rebirth, so with that is a lot of, like, I don't want to say harshness, but it can be quite intense when we have to breathe into those life and death cycles, and Kali is the goddess of destruction, of illusion, and things like that. So I think that there is a misconception right now in some of the greater conversation, like divine feminine is just wearing the dresses and being submissive and only having kind thoughts. And I do think that in this current society, we are primarily masculine energy driven, and we could use some more softness, absolutely, across the board, regardless of your gender, but not to be mistaken with, like, it's only that side of it, you know?
Okay. And what about body work and retreats? Because you're kind of moving into doing more retreats now. Do these tie together? Like, all of these, I'm guessing, kind of tie together within the scope of what you try to...
Yeah, absolutely. So body work, I practice Reiki, and I also practice Balinese massage. So those are my ways that I do body work. But I mean, Reiki technically is energy work, but I do some hands-on approaches within that. And then I like to combine that with the Balinese massage. Balinese meaning like from Bali. I did a short training in Bali last fall for that. And combining that with retreats, I guess, kind of bringing it all together, and we can talk more about retreat structure, but as you mentioned earlier, a lot of us really struggle to take a vacation, and while retreats absolutely can be action-packed with things to do, I think it's really important to find a level of softness and surrender, not having to do anything, and find that relaxation quality in there, moving into that feminine energy, and also nurturing one another and holding people in their emotions and holding ourselves in our emotions and tending to that, and maybe feeling into the really big, deep things in our heart space that we've been distracting ourselves from. And now in a retreat, you're just really in a vacuum of this space of just you, yourself, and your sisters, or, you know, if it's a co-ed retreat, you know, all your community, to turn towards all the stuff within that requires a lot of tenderness, and also can be quite raw and big depending on what comes up. So yeah.
Okay, and are your retreats female only, or do you do co-ed, or what? I
do both. My last retreat in Sedona second to last was female only. I did a one night in North County that was co-ed. My Joshua Tree one will be co-ed.
Okay.
TBD on Mexico. I haven't decided.
Okay, all right. We'll be looking out for those details.
You'll be in Europe anyways. So.
Yeah. Maybe the Mexico one, though. I've actually never been to Mexico before. So that could be I know.
Really?
I know. I've only actually ever been to Canada, and mostly because my family is from Canada. My mom's from Montreal. So I've been to Canada. I haven't been to Mexico, even though I live in San Diego. I know. I'm working on it.
You've been to Hawaii.
Hawaii, exactly. 3 times, actually, but not Mexico. And then this will be my first time in Europe. So as I mentioned, I've changed careers a couple of times, and throughout the course of my life, not to make this about me, but I've worked a lot of contract positions, and I haven't had a lot of like paid time off and stuff. And when you work contract positions, it's often difficult to take vacation, because when you're working a lot of contract positions and you're not salaried, you not only have to pay to go on the vacation, but you also are not getting paid when you're not working.
PTO. You get paid for the work you do.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like you're paying twice, because you're not making a paycheck and you're paying to go on vacation. So I'm working to fix that. I would love to travel more, and I think I'm actually in the process of renewing my passport right now. So I think
Step in the right direction.
Yes,
There you go.
I think I'm going to be doing some more traveling here soon. So I'm looking forward to that. So from your perspective, what does it look like when someone actually starts embodying the highest expression? Can you share an example of that either from your own life or a client or somebody from one of your classes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when someone is embodying their highest expression, if we took a snapshot of their day, or maybe a day might not be gracious for people who are having, days happen, but at least the week, like, is how you're showing up in your week or your day reflective of your values, the person that you want to be, the things you want to achieve? Are you showing up in that way, right? I like to do a guided highest self meditation during my events. And it's basically a visualization practice in a nutshell of you at the base of a mountain and you're walking up the mountain, and at the top is like your throne where your highest self gets to sit on. And it's a reflective journey of, as you make your way up that mountain, what things are weighing you down. And those could be habits, those could be people, those could be limiting beliefs, like what is like really dragging you behind, like a backpack, or the stuff you'd have to carry up, and what are the shortcuts that you take, what are the people that help encourage you on the way. And it's a really nice perspective to take. So I really love using that, and that can be a great indicator of what needs to be shifted on a day-to-day basis to be in more alignment.
Okay, is that something that you really kind of envision for your own journey, like kind of trying to reach that mountaintop and checking in with yourself daily, weekly, journaling, like feeling what's weighing you down? And I feel like the best way for us to help other people is to kind of live those things ourselves. So do you do that kind of like regularly?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm pretty consistent with my journal practice, and that's really helpful. I also have a partner that's really supportive, and I actually was on the phone with him this morning because, to be honest, I'm human, and my last week I've had a lot of personal stuff going on with my health, and yet I have not been acting in accordance to my highest self. I was on the phone this morning, and I was like, man, like, I'm really grumpy and I'm disappointed in myself today because I have all the tools and I also have a lot of excuses right now, but at the end of the day, I'm staying up past bedtime, I'm not eating in a way that feels good for me, and I'm skipping out on my morning routine. And regardless of what I have going on, that's not in alignment with the things that I say that I want. I want my retreats to be building out. I'm wanting my nervous system to be more regulated. And so if those are true for me, has the way I've been acting been a vote for that future? And it hasn't. So yeah, I would say one of the things I love most about myself is I'm always, I want to say always, I'm very, very often and regularly in a state of reflection. And in yoga, we call that svadhyaya, self-study. And it's a really important part of the philosophy that I take seriously to stay consistent with.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, I don't know if you came up with this line or not. You'll have to tell me if this is something that you came up with or if it's from somebody else.
Sure, I'd love to take credit, but we'll see.
Yeah. So it's the line, "Stop dulling your sparkle." And that's such a powerful line. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that tendency to shrink or self-censor comes from, specifically with women? And how do you help women break that pattern?
This one has a few layers, I think. For people in general, before I kind of fine-tune it down to women, I think that when people see someone in their truth, in their authenticity, in their boldness of self, in a way that they know that they want, but they have played victim and haven't taken responsibility or have been shamed for or been restricted, and they are not doing that for themselves, they project that onto these people that are very free and sparkly and in that, because it's a threat and it's a shame of, damn, I really wish that could be me. And it might not be like the same exact scenario, but in some way they have broken out of limitations and given themselves permission to be exactly who they are, regardless of circumstance, regardless of judgment. And I think that brings up a lot of anger and sadness in people, and it can come out kind of sideways, and that can be a dulling of sparkle. I also think that subconsciously, if it's someone that we care about, it can be a misguided dulling in an effort to keep people safe because they know this is a judgmental world or unsafe for people to be in their unique expression depending on what it is. Not every path of passion and authenticity is the safe route. So I know a lot of people that care accidentally, I think, dull that sparkle, and it's well intentioned, but it still does the damage of making someone feel like they need to be smaller. So in a grander scheme of things, I think that it's almost like a spiritual and personal threat that causes people to do that and dull the sparkle. And then for women, there is another layer just from decades of misogyny and of limitations on expression and what we have rights to do. And I know there's a really nuanced conversation right now about sensuality and what is the line between a woman reclaiming her sensual expression as divine feminine. Shall we bring that back in? It is important for us to feel into our bodies and have a connection to that and not sexualize it versus sensualize it. And some people are very threatened by that because of programming, because of decades of that being in the media or passed down through families or political parties or just culture that says that's too much or that's disrespectful and things like that. So I think there's more layers that women are up against in that way.
Okay. And did you come up with that line, or is that borrowed from a mentor?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. Actually, my friend Michaela, I don't think she coined it either, but she's the one I think who brought it into my vocabulary a couple years ago. She's like, but does it make you feel sparkly when it's like making a choice to do something? And it's actually like a human design thing. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm not super well versed, but human design, there's generators, manifestors, and projectors, and I think there's like two more. I'd have to review it, but I am a generator in my human design, meaning the best way for me to be in this world and most natural and like energizing way is to do the things that absolutely light me up. And when I'm not doing that, it takes away energy from me and the people around me, versus when I'm doing something that feels good for me and I feel passionate about, it generates energy for me and the collective. And so she's a generator too. And that was kind of her check-in. It's like, well, does it make you feel sparkly? Because I'm notoriously indecisive in something I'm trying to get better at. So that's kind of my check-in question with myself.
Okay. Well, I think I'm probably also a generator.
Yeah.
And you're reminding me, I don't think, and I'm not exactly familiar with what you said there. I did follow the logic. And two things. First, I think a lot of these lines and sort of things, like language has been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. A lot of what we say today is recycled from some like Greek or Roman philosopher like back in the day, and people are just kind of like recoining it or repackaging it with like, slightly modernized phrases and so forth. So first, I think there's that. So really, how much of what we say is actually like truly original from somebody like in today's day and age? Probably not much, if we're being honest. And the second thing is, as far as the generators and so forth, recently I sort of came across this concept of creators versus consumers, right? And so with social media being such a big thing right now, how much, this is a hypothetical question, but how much time do we spend like scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, whatever? All of that content that we are consuming was created by somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of consuming in my life of content, and now I'm flipping the script where I'm doing a little bit more of the creating. We are actually doing creating right now. Woo-hoo. And exactly. And you're doing creating with your teaching and your instructing and your retreats and so forth. Even though that might not be like social media, you're still creating something for other people to consume. An experience, mm-hmm. Exactly. You're creating that experience. So I've been enjoying that, and that makes me feel sparkly because I'm passionate about helping other people. And this is an avenue, this podcast and my business at large is an avenue to help other people. And so that makes me feel really fulfilled and energized to create stuff for other people that I know is going to help make the world a better place. And you're probably very much the same.
Yeah. I agree.
So let's talk a little bit more about your retreats. Specifically, your retreats often include everything from breath work to cacao ceremonies, to chakra work, and sisterhood circles. So how do you go about approaching designing an experience that touches mind, body, spirit, and kind of ties all these elements together? Is there a formula? Are you working with somebody? How do you design these?
I do design it myself, and my general rule of thumb, or something that I prioritize, is I want to get into the body or the heart space first. Because again, I think that we as a collective are very quick to go into logic, and myself included. I can think and talk through things all day long. That's been my biggest journey in therapy, is like I can write you and read you a novel on why I am the way I am or feel the way I am, but there's a difference between talking about it and actually feeling into it. And also a priority of these retreat experiences is really creating connections with people. And there is a divide in that when we are just speaking from the brain and from the mouth versus when we are telling someone about what we are feeling in our heart and our body. So my priority when I structure these is we're doing some sort of activity at the beginning of the event or the retreat that gets us into that space first. We're not just going to open with diving deep into whatever the big topic is today. We're going to do a cacao ceremony because that gets us into our senses of sipping the cacao, and it also has several ingredients in there that pump blood through your blood vessels, and they have and it has oxytocin and magnesium to help relax, and the bliss chemical, and one other thing that are just components. I mean, again, it's not like it's dosed with drugs. I just mean these are the kind of components depending on the event, that are subtle that kind of contribute to that experience. So I think it's really important to open in that way, and there's usually an intention setting in that experience that I think creates a really safe space for people, because I'm always going to, one, get them into their body so they can get connected with themselves and rooted first. I will set the parameters on, here are the expectations, not in terms of what you have to share, but this is a safe space. Nothing leaves this room. I'm here to hold space. What is supported, allowed, invited in here? So that's really important to me. The other way I'll do that is with yoga. If we're not doing cacao, then doing some sort of yoga practice first to get into the body, rinse out any energies that might be of nerves or the day that they had before they came in there. And then there's also an experience for us to kind of bond over. We all just did that class together, and now we're going to go into that group discussion. So that's the jumping off point, at least for structuring things.
Okay, so there is definitely a logic and a, no pun intended, flow to structuring the
absolutely.
yoga retreats.
A method to the magic.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. You are a 500-hour certified yoga teacher and also a national board certified health and wellness coach.
Yes, correct.
So how do you weave together those two identities, specifically with regards to movement and mindset, in your daily work?
In my daily work, I include less of my health coaching strategies or educational points, because I'm not really doing one-on-one coaching right now, although I actually really am interested in moving more so back into one-on-one and group coaching, as well as retreats and stuff. I've just been so focused in yoga for the last couple of years, and it's felt really fulfilling, but I'm starting to miss more the other side. So right now I'm a little bit more tilted towards yoga, but the ways I do weave it in is, as much as the health coaching education was about nutrition and lifestyle and habits and stuff, a lot of it was about how to motivate and inspire people, and what is the language that we use to invoke change in people and whatnot. So I think that is something that comes into play with my mentorship, right? Because I mentor teachers and I teach students how to become teachers, and I've been in the management realm of yoga. So I think my communication skills and the way I speak to people have a really good foundation in that health and wellness coach training from there. And then I think there's a really big crossover in just the idea of personal development, because there's a big misconception that yoga is just a workout, and we actually have 8 what they call limbs of yoga, meaning these are the 8 primary components of what makes yoga, and only one of them is asana, meaning physical practice. We have niyamas and yamas, our personal practices, our external exchanges in the way we compose ourselves with others. And so when I am teaching a class, again, there is so much value in someone just teaching a kick-ass workout class. It's good for your mood, it's good for creating connection, and for some people, that's just what they want, and I love that for them. For me, similar to my retreats, I really want it to be a space where I can infuse some inspiration for how they can take their yoga off their mat and incorporate this into the person they want to be, showing up for their highest self and continue to be on that growth path. And the things that I would be asking as a health coach of like, what's important to you, or how do we reflect on our values and how we're showing up, it's, as you said before, repackaged and rebranded from a lot of yoga philosophy that is cleanliness, discipline, honesty, compassion, a lot of things that, I mean, I just said it in layman's terms, but that was written in Sanskrit thousands of years ago. So I think that's a crossover where I'm not necessarily health coaching people in my yoga classes, but I am using connected language of trying to guide reflection and personal growth based on what they're observing in this mindfulness practice.
Okay, very well said. Let's move on to a couple of fun questions now. Again,
Great.
Back to like how we started. We're at kind of our halftime, if you will. A lot of times I'm talking to athletes, so we have kind of pregame and halftime. I don't know if there's really a halftime when it comes to yoga, though, right? You don't really have like an intermission between classes, do you?
No, not really. The way I structure my classes, I mean, it's per the structure of our kind of formula for a yoga box. In the middle of class, there actually is a designated like mat stretch, like 2 minutes for you to kind of like cool down after the ass kicking you got in Sun B.
Okay.
So this is our mat stretch, which is perfect.
Mat stretch time, man. I love that. All right. Actually, I've been thinking about, as a kind of random aside, thinking about joining like core power yoga or yoga box or whatever, because I do mostly weight training. Mm-hmm. And I've just been thinking about different ways to meet people and get outside of the gym and different forms of exercise and so forth. So,
well, it's also a really big compliment to weight training. Well, first of all, you're welcome on my guest pass anytime. But one of the most common things I hear from athletes or just men who naturally have tighter hips and hamstrings in a lot of ways. I don't know what the scientific root of that is, but it seems to be a pretty common thing I'm hearing and experiencing in literature and in real life, is that like, oh, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible. And that's like saying, oh, like I can't drink water, like I'm thirsty. And it's like, that's the point.
100%. Like, you're probably not flexible because you're not doing yoga,
right? Then the goal is not the pose, right? So it's going to help with your recovery as an athlete to stretch out your muscles so they don't just get so wound up and then you're too tight and sore and can't go into your next lift. And I'm not a personal trainer, but I'd like to think I have a general knowledge of the body. And from my understanding, a deeper range of motion for many of the exercises can provide you with a lot more benefit in terms of strength and just the output that you're going to get, the benefit you're going to get from a deeper squat versus a shallow one. And doing yoga is mobility. It's going to increase your range of motion, which is going to propel the efficacy of your strength training depending on what you're doing. So I think that they go really well together. And also nervous system regulation, right? Strength training is an activator for sure. Like it puts you in sympathetic activation, and that's not a bad thing. It's healthy stress in a way for us to be able to go into that state, but we also need to be able to come back down. And yoga is a great way where you can be in a workout, but because it's so mind-body oriented, you do kind of have to stay present with your breath, and it keeps you in a healthy stress rather than I am fully activated in stress response, but I'm dissociated because it's too much, right? I have to stay present. And when we're present, we're able to stay in that window of tolerance. So I think it's a great benefit to add to strength training. I'm not like a yoga only girl. I like to do it all. So don't put yourself in a box.
For sure. Definitely. No pun intended, right? Put yourself in a box if it's a yoga box.
Yeah.
Speaking of classes, so halftime question or mat stretch? Is that what we call it? Mat stretch question. If you had to relive one moment from a retreat or yoga class forever, whether it was something that was funny, emotional, or just a magical moment, what memory are you looping, and what exactly made it so memorable for you?
In the spirit of being fun, I'll start with a quick fun one, then do a meaningful one.
Okay.
But it was in my first yoga teacher training that I did in 2019, And there's a pose where you're on your belly and you're like in an arch and you're reaching back for your ankles. So your body kind of looks like this is my head and my hands are reaching back for my feet that are right there.
Like
like the big U
inverted boat pose kind of thing.
Exactly. That's exactly the vibe. And we were doing it, and there's like, I don't know how many people, 20-something people in the room at least, doing this teacher training, and it's toward the end of our training. We're starting to feel really connected, have fun, and she just has us like start rolling side to side. She's like, all right, now roll to your right and roll to your left. So it's just a room full of adults like trying to focus on learning yoga, and we're all just roly-poling around. It was just very lighthearted. It really was a good reminder for me that I come back to as people can get really serious and stressed pursuing education they're passionate about, that it's supposed to be fun. It's really supposed to be fun. And that's just kind of a light bulb memory for me that I love to come back to. I'm just rolling around like roly-polies on the mat for the first time.
Like there was probably a lot of laughter happening in that moment.
Oh my gosh. And probably very healing for people. Some of them are older adults. I was 21, 22 at the time, and I'm still very much in that play state, and I got to watch the looks on some of the older adults' faces be like, what do you mean we're going to roll around?
What?
And it's like liberating for the inner child. So that was a really beautiful, fun moment for me. I've tried it in my class a couple times here and there. I don't want to overuse it, but I've thrown it in here and there. And I would say the most powerful memory for me was I was invited to teach yoga for my friend Cameron's retreat in Sedona, Arizona a couple years ago. And we had this beautiful property out overlooking the red rocks in a canyon. And I just had a very cool pinch me moment of something I'd been working hard for and trying to manifest for a while, of like, I want to be an entrepreneur and be paid to teach yoga in beautiful places. And I'm doing that with women I care about and this beautiful scenery. And I just remember them all laying there in Shavasana, me just like looking out at my surroundings back at that. And I was like, wow, I might not be full time with this yet, and I'm not where I want to be, I can be, but I'm definitely in my highest self. I am making the steps on a day-to-day basis. This is reflective of the person that I want to be and everything. So, yeah.
Okay, so that was kind of just like one of maybe those like I'm here, I made it.
I'm doing it.
This is what I want to do.
Happening.
I'm doing it. Yeah,
Let's continue in this direction. This is awesome. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. All right, next question. You are hosting a wellness reality show called The Mindful Ones. What's the first challenge on the show, and who, this could be a real person, a friend, a coworker, who is mysteriously late to sunrise meditation every day on your reality show?
Wait, what was the second part? Who is late? Sorry.
So yeah, you're hosting a wellness reality show called The Mindful Ones. What's the first challenge on the show, and who's mysteriously late every day?
Okay, is this someone that's famous that we already know, or just someone in my life?
Could be somebody famous, could be somebody in your life that's like always late. You could shout somebody out or throw somebody under the bus, however you want to go about it.
Well, it's funny. I think I'm going to actually connect these two questions, because the mindful challenge is, there's a couple parts here. The opening mindful challenge is you can't bring your phone into the yoga studio.
Love it.
You would be hopefully shocked at how many people bring that into the yoga studio. Like, you can't go 1 hour without your phone on your mat.
Oh, I'm not shocked at all. As a personal trainer, I can't even go 50 minutes without clients like texting or checking. I mean, you look around any gym and everybody's on their phone.
That's part one. And then to your point, it's pervasive. It's outside of the hour. It's the second mindful task, if I get out of my resentful yoga teacher brain,
sure.
is you don't auto check your phone every day. It's your challenge is when there's a pause in conversation and stimulation and anything, that you just do nothing with it and you just observe rather than go to their phone. And like, I'm guilty of that too. But it's a really worthwhile challenge. And also not leaving before Shavasana. I would say in conjunction with the second question, which is who's leaving early. It's like the people that leave during Shavasana.
Well, who's late every day?
Oh, who's late? Excuse me.
Who's showing up late? People probably leave at the end of class before it's over, though.
I don't let them if I can stop them. I'll walk over to their mat as they're rolling up their mat, and I'll say, "Can you please stay on your mat?"
It's distracting for other people. First of all,
it's disrespectful. It's distracting, and honestly, again, there are exceptions. You know, if someone comes to me before class and they're like, hey, like, I got to pick up my kid.
For
or
sure.
like, nanny's ending. Like, of course, I'm not
Yeah.
going to be like, no, you can't come to yoga. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I want to give back and stuff. But it's the people that just have poor time management, don't really respect that this is a sacred space, or just feel like I came here for the workout and I don't need the stretch parts. Like, this is a really crucial part of the experience.
Huge part.
If in fact you need this more than anyone else in the room, if you're not able to stay still for just a few minutes. Also, you're not stretching your body out after a hard work. You're not letting your nervous system come back into a safe space, because I just kicked your ass. Like, your heart is going. And if you're just running out of the studio and then rushing off in your car, you are just perpetuating the state of what I consider unhealthy masculine energy. It's go, 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 not in a grounded, productive way, but of knee-jerk, like, must go, do, keep going, and push. And yeah, it needs to be stopped.
Yeah. Is it mostly the men that do that?
No, absolutely not.
Mostly women? Or
I
just
haven't
an equal
noted.
balance of both?
I would say that's hard to say, because there's more women in my classes than men.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say what it would be like if that was even. So I do see more women leaving because I just have more women in my classes.
Yeah.
But I have seen both.
Okay.
It's the rushers. It's the I'm just here for the workout.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's move on to the next question here. Let's say your yoga mat grants you one supernatural ability every yoga session. What power are you picking? And I can give you some examples if you need, but what power is your yoga mat giving you, supernatural power, for your next yoga session?
I want to hear your ideas. I'm curious, because you've had some really fun ones.
So it could be something like instant flexibility for those of us that aren't very flexible, myself included, floating in meditation, or this is actually my favorite one. I wish I had this as a personal trainer, telepathic cueing.
Like, I could cue people without using
So you're just
words.
kind of like floating around and you're just like
I
cueing
respect
people.
that. It's not the
like-
one that excites me
Yeah.
most, but I really respect that idea.
Could be instant flexibility, floating while you're meditating.
Mm-hmm.
It could be
Ooh, okay. I'm going to speak to the ones that you mentioned, and then I just had one pop into my head. But if it were a one-time thing, I'd say the floating, but I wouldn't want that to be a regular experience. I want that to be special. I want that to, like, inspire me. But the flexibility, that really speaks to me. I am quite flexible because I've been dedicated to this practice for so long, or gymnast before, but I'm also human, and I'm also not 15 anymore. So I have limits that are emerging often.
Yeah.
And not just out of ego of like, I want to get into this pose, but there's so many transitions that can be made when you have greater range of motion and things to get into, that I would just love to not be limited in that way. I'm not very limited, but no limits would be really cool. I think that's what drew me to yoga so much when I was in college, is that, like, I've loved many sports, but there's something really special about just you and your body. And I found that with gymnastics too, right? It's calisthenics. It's how can I make my body into these shapes, propel myself in and out of gravity with this. And that's what I think is most just rad about the yoga practice. So I would want to empower myself in that way, flexibility. But superpower as a teacher, if I could clone myself so I could give everyone hands-on adjustments in class and no one would be left behind, that would be great, because I've got 45 people in my classes and I can get to some, but I have not found a way yet to get to all. And I think that's such a beautiful way to connect with people, help their practice be safer, and feel more in touch with you. So
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of group exercise instruction, although I have throughout my fitness coaching career. And it's frustrating when you're an instructor and you have so many people in your class and you want everybody to just, not that it is incredibly important that everybody does every pose perfectly, because bodies are different and people have different abilities, and some people can get into poses and some people can't. But I'm sure you've been instructing and you're seeing all kinds of people, whether they mean to or not, they're just like not doing the pose correctly. Mm-hmm. And it's like you can only address so many different people at the same time, whether it's verbally or physically, while they're doing the pose. And that's just like, it's frustrating because you want to help them so much and you want them to be feeling it in the right place. And you might see them kind of like looking around, like maybe it's their first time, they just don't know how to do it. And you just, with that many people, you can't possibly help everybody.
Yeah, you just can't. And I also struggle with the balance of that, because I'm like you. I want to correct everyone. And I think there's a small part of me, admittedly, that's probably just the perfectionist that comes out. But it's primarily what you said. Like, I want them to feel good in the pose. And I know that if they fix this form, the stacking of the joints or engagement, it's going to feel better, and it's going to give them the maximum benefit of what's supposed to be feeling stretched or strengthened. So that's a line that I have trouble writing, because on one hand, we don't always need that, right? You can feel so much benefit from just moving and just feeling good and strong and open in your body, and it doesn't need to be a picture perfect pose for it to add value to your experience that day. But also, it can add value to get into the perfect version of the pose. So I struggle to ride that line sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way as a personal trainer, because even though I have one-on-one, so I can really do all those individual coaching corrections, sometimes it's just not appropriate. If I have a beginner client, for example, they don't need the advanced cues.
Let's just be happy they're deadlifting,
right, exactly.
Even if it's not perfectly
exactly.
pitched shoulder blades back. I'm so glad you feel strong and are doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, assuming they're going to continue with their weightlifting journey, I can cue a couple of the most basic ones this time, and then next time, once they're a little bit more proficient, we'll do a couple more. But as a super advanced yogi, right?
Yeah.
And as a super advanced weightlifter, we know what the correct pose is supposed to be, and where you're supposed to be feeling it, and what muscles are supposed to be activated. It's not hypercritical that a beginner does it absolutely perfectly.
No.
Even if we were to cue them and do physical adjustments to them, they're still probably not going to be able to do it perfectly. So it's more important that they're there and that they have a good time and so forth.
You don't want to scare them off.
Exactly. You don't want to be hypercritical of anybody doing anything. You want to be as helpful as possible, but not scare them away, because they're like, oh my God, I couldn't even do that right. Like, I'm not going to go back again.
Right? Like, those people, we need to give them the attention to make sure they're safe. Right?
Right.
For sure. It's like,
yes.
we got to give whatever we need to make sure they're doing it safe. But from there, it's like, I just want them to feel like they want to come back.
Right.
So how much do I give or not give? I got to give enough that they feel like they're doing it somewhat right, but not too much that they feel like they're doing it wrong.
Right. And then after that, it's perfect. You look beautiful. Great job. You're super strong. Keep it up. Exactly. And you're just building them up. So I do the same thing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your personal journey, some healing, impact that you have on other people, sort of people in the fitness community or the yoga community at large. So a lot of what you teach centers around releasing limiting beliefs and rewriting old narratives. Mm-hmm. What were some of the beliefs that you had to shed in your own personal journey as you've moved through this experience of teaching?
Yeah. I think it's important to mention some limiting beliefs that weren't necessarily related to my teaching, but have just been integral to like who I've become as a person, which I think then obviously leads into teaching. It's all connected. But I struggled with autoimmune conditions since I was 13 years old, and they've been quite severe at certain times of my life. And I had a limiting belief that this is lifelong, uncurable, I can never get better, I'm a victim, and to be fair, that's what a lot of Western medicine says, and as a child, I'm trusting the doctors and the professionals and everything, and through diet and lifestyle, and that's not just, I eat more protein and I go to yoga. It's like I really reworked the entire way I show up as a human on so many different levels, and that has put my autoimmune stuff in remission and got me off of the medication that they said I'd have to be on my entire life. So that was a really big limiting belief that I had to work through, and it required belief in myself and trust in my body that I can heal, and trusting my inner wisdom and some of the more holistic perspectives over the doctors that are telling me, don't do this, like you're going to get really sick if you go off these meds, and that's been a really powerful thing for me. And I think while it's not directly related to how I teach, that was, I would say, the foundation of why I'm so passionate about that, because that's really changed my life.
Okay, and this kind of ties into the next question. So this could be you, or this could be one of your students or yoga participants, I suppose, or both. You could speak to both if you want. Can you walk us through what it feels like when someone reconnects with their body, maybe for the first time in years, maybe ever, through some of the sort of somatic or embodiment practices maybe that you were sort of loosely referring to in that last question?
Mm-hmm. Can I tag on one more point before I go into that one?
Of course.
Before I lose it?
Perfect.
Because I mentioned a limiting belief that I really feel that I have worked through, but I think it's important to humanize myself that one I'm still working on is that I can still be successful and valuable even if I rest, right? Working through, like, as much as I am talking about feminine energy and stuff, right? We teach and we work in the things that often the things we are working on or have worked on, and that's still a work in progress for me. I've made leaps and bounds in that direction, but it's still something that I have to meet in resistance on some days where my body is telling me, no, you need to rest, and there's an instinct in me to just keep pushing and doing more. So I'm still working through that limiting belief of rest being a safe and valuable thing to do. And some days it's easy and I've got it, and some days it's not. So I just wanted to bring that in before we move on. But
of course,
someone who has had, sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, so just walk us through what it feels like when someone reconnects with their body. Could be you, could be someone that you've worked with, maybe for the first time in years, maybe ever has somebody connected with their body in a meaningful way through somatic or embodiment practices.
Sure, yeah. I've had a couple clients where we're maybe like, when I was still doing one-on-one coaching more so, and we would be like maybe a month into our program together, and we've talked about a lot of stuff, and you know, I tend to attract clients that have similar natures or struggles to what I've been through. And I was working with a few clients who are very much women in their heads. They're telling me and kind of talking to the surface level of everything they're experiencing and going through. And there comes a point where I ask them to, like, this is, the short story. I've asked them to pause and really breathe into it. Don't tell me from your mouth and your head. Like, I want you to actually feel what you're talking about. And as you share it to me, like, I want you to be in that first and foremost, and then let me witness, and then you can share that with me. And that is really when the waterworks come in my experience, because it's a big difference of talking about something versus feeling it. And what I notice, and I don't think this is true as a blanket statement, but when someone finally comes into their body for the first time, I believe a common experience is having two things happen at once. One is a great deal of discomfort comes up as they are feeling into the things that they have subconsciously or consciously pushed aside, avoided, repackaged, or whatever, and they are finally feeling it in their body for the first time. Grief, shame, anger, trauma, whatever it is, and it feels like, ugh. And also, it's finally getting the space to not be trying to explode, and it finally gets to explode. So there's like the discomfort from the explosion, but also the relief from the explosion is what I'm getting at. When someone finally comes into their body that they haven't been in for a while, it's, oh my God, this explosion is so intense and abrupt and overwhelming, and wow, the space that it has created, the softness it has created with me now that I'm not fighting against it is so liberating. So that's something I see a lot.
Okay, I think I've had similar experiences, and maybe I'm talking about something totally different. You can kind of correct me after I tell you this. I have a difficult time crying. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to cry. I've bottled up a lot of emotions for a lot of years, some traumatic childhood experiences. It's difficult for me to cry. Sure. It takes a lot, like way more than it should. Mm-hmm. And usually when it does spill over, it's like ugly crying. It's just like, but I've had very interesting experiences when I do cry in the past, because when I do cry, I feel so good. Like I'm almost like happy that I'm crying. It's like weird. It's like this release of emotion.
The release valve.
Yeah. It's like, thank God. Like I've been holding this all in for so long, not on purpose, but just because that's just how it is. And it's like, so I don't know if that's similar to what you're talking about.
Absolutely. That's absolutely in the same vein. It's for whatever reason, whether it's a protective mechanism or not, this has been bottled up because I didn't feel safe to feel it, or I just wanted to avoid it. It's like it's building trust in our nervous system. If I don't think that I have the capacity to feel what I would have to feel if I turned towards this. And when it finally comes out, it's usually not as bad as we think it's going to be. And I don't want to dismiss the things that like are truly very terrible, but often the pain and suffering that we experience from putting something off is greater and longer than what we would have to feel. It might actually be more painful to feel it when we do, but it's shorter, right? There's the common study that like an emotion on average only lasts about 90 seconds in the body. And it's the stories and the narrative that we go through following that actually prolongs the experience. So if we can build our capacity, our tolerance to open up to a feeling in our body and breathe through it for a couple minutes, it usually really subsides and gets to alchemize, as long as we're not like rippling, repeating in our head through those storylines. So yeah, and I want to say you're not alone. I know a handful of people who really, really struggle to cry, and I don't know what it is for you. Again, it can be very wise intelligence inside your body trying to be protective, and it also could be programming as a man that sunk in, that said, I can't do that. It's weak, and that's its own problem and can of worms. So I'm glad it feels good when you get to have the release.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a protective mechanism than it is like I'm not like in that toxic masculinity kind of
that's great news
thing where I'm just like, oh, I can't show emotion. It's just like it was a protective mechanism from childhood trauma where like I didn't allow myself to feel anything because it was the best way to operate. I had
dissociation is a protective mechanism for a nervous system.
I was like, well, I can't function feeling this kind of stuff, so I'm just gonna shove it all down over here because I need to function. But it's still there. And it's still eating away at me, but it's like eventually it's going to like build up enough that the floodgate kind of boils over. So
I think we just need to cry more collectively.
Yeah.
I think we need to cry more. I had a really powerful experience maybe like 4 years ago, I'd say. I was in Joshua Tree, actually, and I had taken a larger dose of psilocybin. And like I've been recreational with drugs for a longer time than I care to admit, but I was newer to actually doing it quite intentionally. And I was with a few of my best friends for my birthday, and at that time of my life I was in like the peak of my dysregulation and my unhealthy yang energy of just burnout, overdrive. I had a terrible eating disorder, working out too much, overworking, and I never ever stopped, and it was the worst I had been. And thanks to the medicine, when I was laying on this beanbag chair with my two best friends, they're a couple, and I was just laying with them, and it's the first time I like stopped moving, and it felt like years, and I just like silently, tears streamed down my face for like over an hour, and it was so relieving. Coming back to the question of like what's it like when someone comes back into their body the first time, like that, it's oh my gosh, I have been clenching and holding so much in and kept myself moving so I wouldn't have to feel something. And I didn't have like some big memory that made me cry. It was just, oh, how much we can relax and soften, and how important it is to feel safety and stillness in our body. Our body craves that, our nervous system needs that, and that really catapulted my passion for microdosing and psilocybin as a medicine. I worked for a couple different microdosing companies after that, doing integration coaching and creating programs for like mindfulness and all that, because I'd like to think we can all do that on our own. And for some of us who have such ingrained habits of dissociation or different coping strategies, medicine like that I personally don't know to have super negative side effects versus other things.
Pharmaceuticals.
Exactly. Which I've done and definitely had bad side effects. I had the Zoloft thing back then, and I was like, I'd rather build my capacity to feel feelings like this because I needed this. I mean, I can still feel and visualize that exact moment of a pivotal time in my life where I was like, this is the energy I need more of. I think before I knew like, oh, I need more feminine energy. Now that I think about it, that was that moment of, I need more softness. I need more slow. I need more safety. And like, I can give that to myself. And thankfully, psilocybin, helps with our neuroplasticity. It helps us actually create changes in our thoughts and our habits. Some of the things that I had been trying to shift in terms of the way I move through things quickly for years, I hadn't gained traction on. Once I started microdosing, and setting my daily intentions in my journal of what I wanted to be doing differently, and I'd been doing that for ages, but once I started microdosing, I actually was able to find those changes where I'd be in the moment, I'd have that pause between the stimulus and the response, and I was like, I really want to be texting and driving, I really want to rush through this, and oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually grasping that moment where I can choose differently, versus before I was never able to slice that and get in there and choose differently. So big advocate for that.
Well, that sounds very powerful for one.
Yeah.
And it sounds very kind of eye-opening for you. Sounds like you're a lot more aware of that now in a way that you weren't before that specific moment in time. Would you say
Absolutely.
That's true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. And I think that's why I'm able to answer questions like you asked before, like, oh, do you reflect often? It's like, yeah, I do, because I notice when I am not in the better behaviors or making those positive shifts, because thanks to microdosing, I have felt in my body when I'm in that trajectory of making positive change. And when I say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, the contrast is quite striking,
Okay. Is that something that you do regularly, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I've gone through phases with it. 2 years ago, I had a really, really regular practice. Last year, I went through a few months here and there where I had a really regular regimen with it, and I am just now starting back up my regular regimen with it. I think it's challenging for me. I'm quite sensitive to this stuff sometimes, and as a yoga professional, like I don't microdose and go to class. I know some people can be in their profession while on a microdose. I mean, it's supposed to be sub-perceptual is the definition of microdose. You shouldn't be able to feel it. And I also believe that microdosing highlights what you need most. And because what I need most of isn't more productivity and focus, like is more softness, like I'm just getting sleepy. And like I am invited into more soft and like go lay in nature or journal and stuff. So me doing that and going to work is like just a no-no for professional reasons and for what feels like I need in my body. So that made it a little bit challenging to be regular with my dosage because I had to work around my work schedule. And now I have a little bit more of a flexible schedule that I'm able to do it on the days or hours that I'm not going to be teaching. And that feels really supportive.
Okay. Sounds like a very powerful modality for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of powerful modalities, some of the modalities that you offer personally sort of in your classes and probably in your retreats, we talked about some of these earlier. Breath work, pretty generic one, Reiki, massage. Which one of these has surprised you the most in terms of personal or client breakthroughs? Which modality?
I would say Reiki surprised me the most. I think because breath work has so much scientific proof and it's quite I don't want to say straightforward, but I think it's more validated in the research world and has more science behind it, that it's a wonderful thing when there's really big breakthroughs. I'm not all that shocked. I'm like, oh, wow, that was amazing. But I'm not like, how could that possibly have come out? I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense, right? Based on nervous system and body versus I think Reiki is more, I'm going to say a little bit, it is more into the woo-woo and to the energy. And from personal and professional experience, I have seen really big breakthroughs. And while I'm not absolutely shocked, I think there was an element of surprise because I wasn't sure how real it is or what to expect. I knew that it would at least be surface level regulating for the nervous system, but I didn't realize how much could be moved in a session and the implications of that. I thought, yeah, bare minimum restorative, get us feeling good like a massage, but I didn't expect the level of release that has come out in some sessions of myself or clients.
Okay. And I don't really know, so this
Sure.
is going to be informative for me and our listeners as well. So Reiki, it has a lot to do with energy, right?
Yes.
Is it the energy movement, is it similar in any way to like acupuncture with like opening up energy pathways and like blockages and so forth? Kind of walk us through what Reiki is exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reiki, by definition, means life force or universal energy. That's literally what the word means, and it comes from Japanese lineage. Acupuncture, to my knowledge, runs on a lot of like meridians and energy lines to the bottom. There's like a lot of those, and I'm not trained on that. There's definitely some crossover in energy, right? Because this is Eastern based in some way, so there'll be little things. I don't know enough about Acu to make those connections, but Reiki is primarily oriented around the chakra system. So technically you have, I think, hundreds, if not thousands of chakras in your body, but we focus on the main 7 from your tailbone or your feet all the way up to the crown of your head. So we focus on those energy centers, and where an energy center is out of balance, that could either mean it's overactive or underactive. And there's a lot of different approaches that practitioners take. I've received Reiki where they don't really say much to me and they kind of just feel into it and do the work for me. And what I mean by that is they will scan over the body, and some people just have this gift and some people are trained with it, but they can feel where energy is kind of trapped in the body. They can even kind of tell you about like the texture that they are sensing, or sometimes, what the story is behind it, but not often. That's kind of more psychic stuff.
Is it hands off or hands on?
It's depending on the practitioner. You can absolutely do it hands off. Some people do it hands on to be a little bit more supportive and connected. I think it depends on both what the client wants and the practitioner. I do more hands off than on. That's just what has felt intuitive to me, but I'm certainly not against hands on. There's certain points that I prefer to do hands on and certain points that I don't do that, and I think I don't really have a rhyme or reason for that. I follow the vibes.
It just feels right for you.
It feels right for me, and quite frankly, I think I might just need more experience with some of the hands-on positions. Reiki hasn't been my primary focus. I mean, I've had a fair amount of clients, but I'm doing that once a week or every other week versus I'm teaching at least 2 classes a day or something like that. So I have a lot more experience in my other modalities. But yeah, so Reiki is moving things through the energy centers, and again, different styles. Some people will not say anything and they'll just kind of move the energy through, think like Qigong or Tai Chi. I can't remember what I'm referring to, but like almost airbending.
Sure.
Kind of moving the energy. Myself, just given my background with subconscious reprogramming and coaching, and I'm just a talker, if you haven't gathered that yet.
Sure.
I like to talk, and
yeah.
I also don't want to feel like I'm doing the work for them. I want them to feel empowered. So my preferred strategy is I will hold my hands over, not touching their body, and feel into which energy centers are feeling more active or inactive. Sometimes I can really feel into a texture that gets a little bit more specific. And then I'll tell them what I observe. And I always tell them first. I used to ask them what they felt, and then I'd confirm it. And I'm like, they're not going to believe me. That's what I felt. So now I always tell them first. And
okay.
I've been right, which is pretty cool, which is very, very validating to me.
Sure.
So I tell them what I've observed, and they go, oh my gosh, that's so weird. That kind of actually really tracks. I never thought about that way. Why? I haven't been being honest with myself, so that's why my throat chakra feels really constricted and stuff like that. And then from there, I'll have them talk through what is going on and what they think this could mean. And we'll kind of have a coaching session within the Reiki. And again, that's not standard for Reiki practitioners. In my experience, I'm sure other people do it, but it's not like the MO. But that feels really authentic for the way that I want to give the service, just because of my other skills in that. And then from there, we'll kind of talk through how to even out the energy based on their strong centers. How can those areas support other places? Like, okay, you have a really strong sense of self. So how can that help you with your feeling of safety that you're not really feeling in your root chakra? So that's an example of if we have a strong energy center, how can we pull from the strength of one part of our life and put it into others and really self-source, because the idea is that we all have all the energy and resources within us that we need. It just gets dislocated or distributed poorly, depending on what energies what areas need more energy and stuff. So we'll do that together, or I will kind of finish up and kind of move it through it for them. But I like it to be collaborative, and that's not everyone's style.
Okay.
Some people just want to lay there and like get healed, and that's totally fine too. You know?
Yeah, I've noticed that massage therapy sessions are often sometimes the same, where it's like some of my massage therapists are like trying to talk to me, and I'm like, I'm just here to.
And that's how I feel
like,
too. I don't want to.
I'm just here to like chill. Like, I don't want to have a conversation with you, and I'm very verbal about that. Some people, I'm a big boundary setter, but a lot of people are not good at that.
Well, people
and so
please.
like, yeah, exactly. For the first 5 or 10 minutes, I'll like kind of entertain their questions, and then I'll literally tell them, I'll just be like, hey, I'm just here to kind of chill. So if you don't mind, like, let's just,
silent session. Please.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they'll kind of get the hint. But yeah, So
good on you. I know that's challenging sometimes. Maybe not for you.
Yeah,
but I know
for a lot of people
yeah.
it is, for sure. Okay, let's move on here. So in your experience, what are some of the most misunderstood ideas about wellness or the divine feminine that we talked about earlier? What do people often get wrong about those two ideas? I know you touched on kind of the divine feminine earlier, so maybe wellness. What do people get wrong about wellness in your opinion?
One, what we discussed earlier, I think the 80-20 thing, and again, everyone has their own percentage, but this perfectionism that ends up being worse for their health than just living in moderation. I think that's a big thing that people kind of get wrong. But also that there is a one size fits all. Like, that's just not true. That one of the first things that I learned in my health coach trainings was what we call bio-individuality. Like, every person's system is set up different, I can have my own personal beliefs on what I think about certain diets and what the drawbacks and benefits could be, but at the end of the day, I'm not in your body, and I don't know how you feel, and you as a man are going to need to eat differently than me as a woman. It depends on blood type, it depends on activity, it depends on, if I don't know if they talk about this in your Ayurvedic retreat, but your doshas, the 3 different dosha types and energies and the way we eat and stuff. And so I think it's really dangerous when we just adopt whatever the trending workout or diet or supplement is, because to be fair, it's probably getting popular for a reason, because it really is beneficial for some people, and I do believe that. But you gotta try it on for yourself and really ask yourself, does this work with what I'm needing? Why am I doing this? And also, am I looking for a fix for something that might be a little bit more comprehensive? So
you would just caution sort of the one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah,
Everybody's
exactly.
their own unique person, and just because some diet or some exercise program worked for somebody else doesn't mean that it's going to be the best one for you.
Yeah, in terms of misconceptions, and then I think just in terms of set-up-to-fail approaches, thinking that you have to stick with something that's been working. Things change, right? I was a pescatarian for a long time, and for a part of that time it actually worked fine for my body and I was okay, and then I moved into a different portion of my life cycle of a human, and that was no longer adequate, and I needed red meat, and I fought it for so long. And there's different phases, we need different things. I know people phase in and out of veganism or keto, and people go through bulking and fat loss phases, and I've known people who get really frustrated when they're not feeling good, and they're like, well, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've been doing the same thing that I've been doing for 2 years. I'm like, it sounds like it's not working for you anymore. We need to be flexible and give our body grace that we go through seasons, right? Eating seasonally too, working out seasonally. I did yoga sculpt and hot HIIT workouts for a long time, and at first it got me to my goal of like losing weight when I was in my early 20s. I had gained some party and
a freshman 15.
Yeah, mine was the sophomore, man. I dropped weight as a freshman, and sophomore I gained it, and it was partying, it was emotional eating and stuff, and HIIT workouts really got the weight off, and then it put my body into fight or flight, and I was like, this is no longer serving me. So just giving people full permission to change your strategy, and it doesn't mean that you're giving up on a particular modality or saying that it's not valid or doesn't work anymore. It's just, this isn't what I need right now, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about your retreats. Specifically, some of them are co-ed, but some of them are also female only. And I wanted to talk about the idea of sisterhood. It seems to be a huge part of your all-female retreats anyways. Mm-hmm. What role has community, specifically of women, played in your personal healing or transformation journey?
Oh my gosh, it's been pivotal. I mean, as I mentioned, I had 2 older brothers. So not only did I not have a sister, but because they were older, they went to college before, I was alone. I said they went to college and I was still just alone, right? Or they went to schools different than me because they were older and we didn't really cross over in terms of schools. So I didn't grow up with sisterhood in any way, and brotherhood was a little bit more sparse even, and I have excellent relationships with my brothers. It's not like we lacked connection. It's just time and space were obstacles.
Of course.
And growing up doing gymnastics, I mean that's an all girl. It's not an all girls sport, but I wasn't training with boys. It was an all girls gym, and that was really powerful for me until I was 13, and then I didn't really have that going into middle school and high school, and I went to a high school that my middle school didn't feed into, and so I had to really restart and didn't have any real friends. And so I think my teenage years, I really struggled with finding female friendships and community. I had a few great friends for sure, but I never found my perfect fit. I felt like I was welcome in a lot of places, but didn't feel like I belonged necessarily, and that was a tough part for me. And I also just felt so much more comfortable hanging out with the boys, because that's what I grew up with my whole life, and my brother's friends that were over, and my neighborhood, my street was like a very active play with your neighbor street, and it was a lot of boys there too. So as I moved more and more into my masculine energy based on trauma that I was experiencing, like medical trauma and other stuff, as I moved into college, the more I got into that masculine energy, I hardened. I had this shell that came up around me. I was in that go, and I was quite shut off in some ways, and I got harsher, and I think that was an obstacle for me connecting with women. It's not like I had fights or beef with them. I just don't think that energy called in those kind of connections. And I had great friends in college, but again, I just never felt like I found the super aligned fit. And I think part of it is because I was still partying pretty hard and I hadn't come into a more holistic way of living. I mean, I still have fun, but it's quite different. It's a quite different look now. And once I really created more aligned friendships in my early and mid 20s, I was just so pleasantly surprised, and just again that breath of relief of, oh my God, I can't believe I've been holding this by myself, like getting ready with the girlfriends and being held and seen by women as I moved through relationships and health issues and stuff. It's one thing to just go over to your boy's house and have them be like, it's all right, Janelle, like you're good, we love you, dude, and that was heartwarming, and I loved it. But it's
not quite the same.
It's not the nurturing feminine energy, and to be met with that by women in my mid-20s, I would say, is when I really connected with them. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so different to have someone actually heart space to heart space with me, not just listening to the girlfriend yap, and being like, we love you. And that just made me feel so seen and accepted, and it really helped me soften, and it helped me become a better listener and hold space. So, yeah.
Okay, well, you've clearly been through a lot in your life. You've talked about a lot of it today. Maybe you haven't talked about a lot of it. That's okay as well. Yeah. But you've been through emotional and physical trauma on a number of different levels, probably. If someone's listening right now who is going through some difficult times, they feel disconnected, they feel stuck or unsure of how to step into their power or their femininity, for example, what would you say to them?
Oh gosh, I want to say a few things. First and foremost, I want to say that there are so many resources out there for you. And I believe in your journey, and I think at so many times in mine, it took so much longer, and I could say I wish I started sooner with, getting on the right path, but it all has to happen exactly how it's supposed to. So trust where you're at, and also choose yourself. Like, it's no one's gonna come and save you. I pray to God that there are people that are gonna support you and make this so much easier, but at the end of the day, it's not your fault what you've been through, but you do need to make a choice that you want to get the help to feel differently, and get those resources. You are who you surround yourself with, so choosing friends that are supportive and also inspire you, people that are taking charge of their own life and autonomy, even if it looks a little bit different in terms of landscape than you. Like, they don't have to be going through the same issues, but they're taking charge of their own life and overcoming obstacles. I mean, a lot of my stuff was health issues, and so foundationally taking a good, hard, honest look of what you're putting in your body. Nutrition, drugs, alcohol, like those will change the way you show up as a human for the rest of your life. Like, that is the stuff that you're putting in every day, and it really adds up. So if you're dealing with any mood stuff, or if you're dealing with anything, like, start with the basics of nutrition and what you're physically putting in your body, number one. Number two, nervous system regulation. It's really hard to heal a body that doesn't feel safe. And it's really hard for you to even have the resources, the capacity to seek help or take care of yourself when you're in this state of fight or flight. So you're making it a priority to find stillness and find whatever your version of nervous system regulation is, right? For some people, that's just laying in the sun. For some people, that's a guided meditation practice. If you have the funds to get a daily massage, do that. Like, wish that could be me,
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Yeah, so, like, I want to walk that delicate line of, I don't want you to feel like this is your fault and you have to get yourself out of this problem that you put yourself into, but I want to empower you and say this is, I don't want to say your responsibility because I want to make it seem like a chore. Like, this is your opportunity to choose yourself. And, like, I know that with the team of myself and others, I can live a better life, and I can surround myself with people. I can fill my Instagram with the things that actually bring me joy and inspiration rather than judgment or misalignment or fear and things like that. It's what you put in your body every day. It's not just through your mouth, it's your eyeballs and your ears. So what podcasts, what books are you listening to? What are you putting in your system that is pushing you more towards the way you want to feel day to day? I think it can be overwhelming to think about this big picture change. If you're at square one and you're looking at square 130, like, it's a lot and it's daunting, but you don't know where to start. But if we do the day by day, it's not easy. It's simple, right? I know that these things don't make me feel good, and how do I create those building blocks up to where I want to go?
Yeah, and to that point, I think it's important to note that no matter where anyone is in their life right now, or as I like to look at it, sort of, we're all dealt a hand of cards.
Absolutely.
Right? It's our responsibility to choose how to play those cards.
Perfectly said. Yes,
no matter where we are, where you are, our listeners or anybody that's listening to this, no matter where you are, it's okay. It's not too late. You can surround yourself with new people who are going to support you, who are going to nurture you. You can change your diet. You can change your exercise routine. It's never too late to change yourself, no matter what part of your journey you're on right now. And there are absolutely people out there who will care about you and who will help you. If you don't have any of those people, we're two of them right now. Reach out to either one of us.
Slide in the DMs.
Right, exactly. Reach out for help. Change. You can change your life one block at a time. The past, another analogy I like to use is kind of like the book analogy. The pages to our left are those that are already written, but we're writing today's page right now, and the rest of our book is unwritten. It's up to you to decide how you want to write the rest of your book or write the rest of your life. So it's never too late to make choices and changes in your life.
I was really hoping you'd start singing Unwritten Natasha Bedingfield, but I love that.
Is that a song?
Feel the rain on your skin.
Oh, see. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking.
I do know the song. I know the song, but I'm not belting it out. Usually, I have a question about karaoke in here. You're probably a good karaokeer. I don't even know if that's a word. I just made it up. But
Yeah. I mean, I like the combination we struck here of like empowerment and like giving them that optimism, but also I want to sprinkle in a little bit of tough love, right? Like I heard this quote recently, everyone wants to heal, nobody wants to change, right? Or
nobody wants to do the work.
Yeah, everyone wants the quick fix. And like,
yeah.
Reality check, your new life is going to cost you your old one. And I need you to like really grasp that. And that's where that Kali energy comes in of like death and rebirth, right? You say that you don't want to deal with terrible anxiety and bloating and gut issues, but you're not willing to give up alcohol. And it's just, you have to really get honest with yourself. Like, which thing do you want more? Your new life of feeling better and not bloated and mentally clear and having your Saturday mornings back means you have to give up some of these other things. And that's just an example. Everyone's unique. But yeah, you have to make some tough decisions, and I think it requires a lot of trust that I'm guessing you can advocate for this, that if you are doing what feels right in your body and feels in alignment with your higher vision for yourself, anything that falls away from part of that process does not belong. Anything that is for you will come in for you. And it doesn't mean it's not sad, but it's going to happen and it's right. And you got to trust that process and be willing to hold whatever grief comes in the way, because you got to make space for the new stuff. And the new stuff's usually pretty freaking good and worth it.
It is for sure. The other side of the fence can often seem very scary, but it's also worth it. So you got to make that list of priorities, and then you have to look at what you're doing in your life. And if the activities that you are doing don't line up with what your list of priorities are, well, your list of priorities is either wrong, or the activities that you're participating in are not serving you anymore. And so you need to change your actions to match your list of priorities. That's a journal prompt that I like to give a lot of my coaching clients is like, write down, I don't know, what are the top 5 priorities in your life? Not, I'm just saying hypothetically as a journal prompt, write them down. Okay. And then, next to it or on the next page, I like to write everything down because it gives, brings sort of life to it instead of these thoughts floating around in our head up here. Write down what your top 5 priorities are. And then next to it, write down what you're doing on a daily basis, the things that you're consuming, including social media and alcohol and food and toxic relationships with other people, because that's kind of stuff that we're consuming. Because to your point, we're consuming with our ears and our mouth and our eyes, etc. Are the activities that you're participating in, do they line up with what you just wrote down what your priorities are? If no, then either your list of priorities that you wrote is not what your list of priorities actually is. And if the list of priorities that you wrote down is actually what your list of priorities are, then the activities that you're participating in are not serving your list of priorities. Then you have a mismatch. So then you need to change your activities, which to your point might mean leaving alcohol behind. It might mean leaving that toxic ex-boyfriend or girlfriend behind. It might mean breaking up with that friend who's, because friend breakups, I mean, you probably
still hurt. Oh my God.
Of course.
Yeah.
You probably have a few friends that you're not, you kind of phase them out of your life. It's a little awkward sometimes.
It still hurts.
But it's like, it hurts. And I love these people, but they weren't serving my list of priorities anymore. And so if you want to create that life for yourself that you say that you actually want, you need to act accordingly. So I find that journal prompt in particular can be helpful for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, how can you expect... It's very entitled to say, like, oh, I want my life to look this way, but my day is not going to look like that. It's like, that's how your life becomes your life, is this day,
Yeah. You become the person that you want to be by the habits.
The days become the weeks become the months, and everything, it just compounds. So if my day is not a reflection of the person I want to be or the life I want to have, then it's not going to happen.
It's not. You manifest it, basically.
Absolutely.
So that we live a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. If you want to live a certain life in the future, you need to start acting that way today. Otherwise, I like to say, like, nobody else is going to do the work for you. You're the only one that can do the work for you. So,
well, and hire help. Like, investments have always come back to me. I am very frugal with money. It's something I'm working on, my abundance mindset. But I have historically been really resistant to invest in mentorship or coaching because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this. And unfortunately, I have to eat my words because every time that someone has said, oh, trust me, the investment comes back to you like pretty quick, or I promise it comes back around, it has been true. It always comes back. I get clients from that, or I get opportunities, or my life force and my well-being is directly reinvested from the money I put down. So open your ears, open your eyes towards people that have the life that you want or have the wisdom to give you the life that you want, because sometimes we do need a little bit of support with discipline or some wisdom if we haven't walked that path or seen someone walk that path, or we know what to do, but we need a little bit of momentum before we can keep that discipline. It can be hard to have discipline when we're not seeing results yet or at the beginning of our phases, right? Like I've gone through several weight loss journeys and stuff, and right now I'm losing a little bit of weight right now intentionally and very mindfully. It's just I put on a little winter coat because I'm human, you know. I love my treats, love my cinnamon rolls.
Of course.
And discipline is hard when you're not seeing the results yet. And when I've gone through these weight loss journeys, weeks like 1 to 3, it's really hard to say no to the treats or stay disciplined with the workouts because I'm not seeing anything yet, you know. But then once I get past that little part and I actually start seeing results, then I'm like, oh my God, I want to keep that going. And I think that's how we feel with a lot of new habits and hobbies too. Yoga, learning an instrument. The first time you pick something up, in my experience, sometimes you want to smash that shit. You're like, I can't do it, and this sucks.
Course,
and then you
usually.
make a little bit of progress, and you're like, oh, now I have that inspiration to keep going. So if something's really important to you, whether it is your physique or your mental health or your career aspirations, if you're struggling to get going, I think it's often really worth it to make that investment, to have someone help you get that initial head start, and then your momentum can carry you a little bit more. But there's no shame in asking for help. It doesn't mean you're weak or incapable. It's just, it's science. It's helpful to have a buddy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Janelle, this has been extremely informative and insightful. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, no doubt, to be here and share your expertise and experience with us. Before we sign off, I'm wondering if there's anything else that you'd like to share with me or our listeners, a mantra, lesson, piece of guidance that's been especially meaningful to you throughout your journey.
Well, first of all, no other way I'd rather spend my Saturday, my day off, actually. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've said some of my catchphrases throughout the course of the show, but one thing my roommate and my best friend has shared with me over the last couple years, it's quite simple. It's have your own back. And while we've just kind of walked through the journey of needing to have kind of tough love sometimes with yourself, it's also really important to have your own back and be like, hey, I know that I fell short in these ways, and I'm going to validate like why I did the things that I did while still striving to be better, because shame does not create change, right? Like my background's in psychology, and positive psychology is really, really powerful and science-backed, and we are much more likely to achieve change within ourselves, and with a lot more pleasure, if we're doing it from a space of I have my own back and I believe in myself. It's better for you. It's more effective. So have your own back in those little moments when you do inevitably falter. Like don't enable yourself, but have your own back. I think that's super important. You got to be your own best teammate.
All right. Well, I appreciate that nugget of wisdom, as I'm sure our listeners do. And with that, I think we'll wrap up here.
Woohoo!
I'd like to thank you once again for being here. Fist bump, since we're too far away at the table that we can't actually high five, but I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope everything goes well for you throughout all your changes that you're going through and difficulties, and we're all going through a little bit of something, so I hope everything goes well for you. And it's a beautiful day out there right now, so I don't know what you're up to this weekend, but I hope you have a great rest of your day and weekend, and we'll chat again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Justin. Such a pleasure.
All right.
Good talk.
Bye-bye, Janelle.
Bye.
Bye.